Hi, I'm Jackson,
And I'm Debbie Jansen.
and
We're sticking to the truth.
We are two motormouth mamas willing to discuss current events with honesty and boldness.
We are truth warriors. No lie is too big, no deception too small. We are sticking
to
the truth.
Okay, we got it out there.
Yay! Okay. Well, Julie, today, why don't you give us a 60-second tip for today?
Okay, I think I've been thinking a lot about making choices. So I have 5 kids. The youngest is almost 17. So, I'm always trying to help her make good choices. And I think kids have to understand that they can't hang out in the mushy middle anymore. There's like this growing polarity movement of black and white. And, we can't just go with the flow anymore or drift with the current, because by not making a choice, that is a choice. And so the best place to learn how to make good choices are at home, right? And so I think the work we do within the 4 walls of our home, teaching our children to be able to discern right from wrong, is going to be critical to their success as they go out in the world. And so the best way I have for the last 30 years with my 5 kids, how to make good choices is within a devotional setting that we have in our house. And I'll flesh that out a little bit more today, Debbie, as we go about. But I think that's what's on my mind this morning. How about you? What's a 60-second tip for
here
the day?
We go. We are connecting, and we're connecting on Sticking with the Truth, because I am teaching my granddaughters something that I think is very important for today's society, and that's cause and effect. For example, they're younger. You may not want to do political stuff or history stuff or whatever on cause and effect, but it helps them learn how to detect the truth when they go to reach over a cup to get something. And I say, whoa, 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 think about cause and effect. If you barely touch that cup, what is going to happen? So the cause is reaching, the effect is what's going to happen. As they grow older, like we're talking about now with current events and all that stuff, what is the cause, actual cause for what's happening in America, and what is the effect that's going to happen after that? For example, we were talking about some of the political situations with my grandchildren, and I said, okay, this person said this, but if that goes into place, what is the cause? And they labeled it. And I said, and what is the effect? Well, Gammy, that must be a lie, because the effect is going to hurt us. Yeah. So when you teach that, I think you've got your kids going straight for the truth.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. And, as they get older, I guess you could coin that kind of like your actions have consequences, right?
That's where you're going, which is what you were talking about.
Right. So, it's so interesting. And the best way, I think, to teach kids that is just by, everyday occurrences going on. I mean, what are going to be the consequences of putting in this kind of an elected leader who doesn't, follow God's laws, right? They want to make their own, like, man's laws versus God's laws. I mean, what does a society look like based on God's law versus man's law? So I think one of the most interesting ways that just happened 2 nights ago was that vice presidential debate against J.D. Vance and Timothy Waltz. Timothy Waltz is the governor. I didn't know this, Debbie. Did you? Where have I been? The governor of Minnesota. So he's been the governor the last 5 years. I guess he was in Congress for, about 12 years before that. Yeah. So my 17-year-old is on the couch in the den. I can hear her. I'm at the dining room table, finishing up a class I just taught. My husband is on the couch with my 17-year-old daughter watching the debate. And I can hear her asking some questions when the abortion issue came up. And then when an issue with Governor Walz had to confess that he told a little fib about not being in China at the time of the massacre. And so she's now talking to dad about, this candidate. And it was interesting to hear some of his responses. And it makes me think that some of the best ways to help your children discern truth from error, the actions of a person and the consequences is being right there with them. I mean,
Exactly.
we
Yeah.
could have missed a really interesting exchange if dad had sat next to her on the couch and given a blow by blow as the candidates are going back and forth. And I think that's why what I do in the home in the mornings with it's called a little family devotional. I've done it with kids when they were little, when they were teenagers, the middles, and I even do a devotional. Most of the kids are spread out around the country now, and I do a text devotional with a little scripture or quote and a scripture, and then I just kind of bear witness of how I feel about, the quote.
Yeah, yeah.
And, once again, I'm teaching them how to discern right from wrong,
Right. Because they're not going to have a good life unless they know how to live in truth, right? Because living by a lie doesn't get you anywhere. It's like trying to nail Jello to the wall. You can't get there. So you have to teach them to discern truth. And I love what you're talking about doing, sitting with them, because that helps a parent become more than just a parent. You're a mentor.
Yeah.
And you don't do it by saying, if you ever do this, I am just going to be so mad at you. You do it by talking to them and saying, okay, this person said this. What do you think that is going to cost? Like on abortion, something that a lot of young people don't ever think about is, okay, if we have a lot of abortion going on all over the country, what happens to our population? What happens to where our country goes? And think about that when you bring the facts in and let them discuss it fully with you, whether you like what they say or not, then you become the mentor and you get more depth out of your conversation. Would you agree?
Oh, completely. So just this morning, so in part of our devotional is I go through the headlines of two newspapers, the Wall Street Journal and the Washington Post, because we live in the Washington, D.C. area. And we got to talking about abortion and the candidates based on one of the headlines. And my daughter said, Mom, in the debate, Tim Walz said that he didn't say he was pro-abortion. He said he was pro-women. And I said, isn't that clever how people that are for killing babies don't like to say pro-abortion because that makes them feel uncomfortable. So they'll do like a little wordsmithing. They'll call it, I'm pro-woman or I'm pro-choice. And so, it can be confusing to a kid because, we all want to be able to make our own choices or, I'm for a woman, I'm pro-woman. And so we have to help them break down what is really going on beneath the surface of these nicely packaged terms.
And I love that. I love what you brought out, that we have to help them with the terminology.
Yes.
Because terminology can lead you straight into a muddy river of lies. Yeah. Like one of my pet peeves is I just totally dislike it when anybody says, I misspoke. That sounds pretty. That sounds like, oh, I should accept that. He just misspoke. No, they are saying that's code for I lied.
Right.
I'm going to admit it. I lied. Why not just say, hey, I lied. I'm a liar.
Yeah.
Instead of saying I misspoke. So anytime someone says that to me, I say, no, you can say other things like, I wasn't thinking clearly, or, I said that, but that was not right. And I shouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
But to say I misspoke, it's a pretty bow on the fact that you lied.
And isn't that what Governor Walz said about that Tiananmen Square? Because so the commentator asked him if he was there, and then he tried to divert the attention, right? And
Yeah.
then she
Yeah.
said, "You didn't answer my question." So then that's when he said, "I misspoke." And boy, you can get away with all kind of lies nowadays by saying, "Oh, I just misspoke." You know?
I misspoke when I said I stole $4 million. I really only stole two. You know, hello.
I
Give me a
mean,
break.
I would almost laugh if my kids, because throughout their growing up teenage years, they were lying to me all the time sometimes, but they should try that. "Oh, Mom, I'm so sorry. I misspoke when I took the car out at 2 a.m." You know,
And I'm so sorry. You're still going to get the same punishment.
that's right. That is so true. So what I'm saying is, do things together. Take them, out to events. So you have things to, some real current events to point out. And that's why I like reading the headlines, because oftentimes in the newspapers in Washington, D.C., they definitely have a narrative that they're trying to push that is not truthful. And so I want my kids to hear from me first before it's spun at school or on social media. I want them to hear the truth at home from mama first.
I love that. I love that. And then when you also teach them how to recognize lies that are out there, which is what you're doing when they hear from you first,
Yeah.
then that changes their whole life.
Yeah.
The worst life, because I do online counseling and stuff, the worst time that kids have, parents have, is when they have been fooled by a lie. When you try to live by a lie and then everything goes south, not only are you dealing with what's happened to your life, but you're also dealing with that pain of, I was fooled, I was tricked,
Yeah.
I was lied to.
Right.
So if we can help our kids discern the truth, they are going to be so much better.
Yeah. Yeah. I call it being lions at the gate. When we send the children and the grandchildren out and when we receive them in, I mean, we're protective of the home because that's where real truth is going to be taught, and we armor the kids up. We send them out to the world. And when they come home, we help them kind of decipher what went on. We talk about it.
Yeah.
Over
Yeah.
dinner, in the devotional, when we're on the couch, watching the movie together. So I guess, quality time is just time being with the kids so you can have
Yes.
conversations.
Yes. And allowing them to voice their opinions in a safe space so that you can bring the truth into that space. Because too many parents say, well, don't you talk about that? Or I don't want you to see that. Or I don't want you to go there or do this, when they need to be somewhat involved. So they come home with questions so that you can help them say, I'm sorry you went through that situation, but let's look at why they are promoting a lie and why you want to get away from that toxic situation.
Yeah. Yeah. And so you got to have home be a safe space, don't you, Debbie?
Yes.
Where they're not going to get reamed or judged or shamed if they talk about things that are transpiring at the university or in their classes at school or with their friends. And I think that's why, I really like that devotional hour because, we study the Bible, we study a little story or some sort of scriptures, and we talk about what does that mean for you today. This morning, we studied the Sermon on the Mount. Consider the lilies in the field, how God, cared and considered even the little flowers. Imagine how he's going to look at us and care, for us and clothe us. His children. And so, we talked about, well, what does that mean when you go out in the world and you're afraid of speaking truth? God has your back. It's going to be okay, And what does it mean to turn your light on and be a source of truth? My little girl the other day, she's a junior in high school, and one of her friends, she was talking about wanting to be a mother. My daughter was. And her friend looked at her and said, "Why are you wanting to go backwards? You want to just stay home and cook and clean. And, that's what women in the olden days did." And so my daughter said, "No, I actually think that's a really cool thing. That's what I want to do." And so she had to, at that moment, she could have shrunk, but she, because we talk about, these principles at home and the devotional setting. So it shored her up to have the confidence and courage to speak her truth when she was
Yeah.
challenged.
Yeah. And that's what parenting really should be about,
Yeah.
is that we make our kids strong,
Yeah.
that they go out into the world and they're leaders. That's what we're supposed to do. And
Right.
I think I'm going to be nice, but the thought that I'm just going to feed them and clothe them and shove them out the door, kids need the training. And when you don't provide it, some of what's going on today is the reason.
Yeah.
And like you, I didn't always do things the way you did it, but I had my own version.
Yeah.
Anytime a subject came up or a problem came up, I said, let's go to the living room, to the couch. And they would, because we would sit in there and discuss that problem till we were done.
Yeah.
And there, I bet if my three kids are watching, which I hope they are, they're all going, yes, I remember the couch. But it was the time when it wasn't punishment, but we sat there for as long as it took to go over that problem. And now as adults, I trust them all. They're all smart, and they are out in the world standing as strong leaders. And that's what we want. Abraham Maslow said, if you want a better society, you have to have better people.
Yeah.
And if you're watching us, I hope that as we continue to do this podcast, we're going to help you see the current news and what's happening out in the world, but we're also going to help you learn how to take that into your family, how to help your children so that they grow and they are strong. And you can subscribe to this podcast and join us again. But also, if you have a topic that you're worried about or that you have a problem with, send me an email, Debbie@debbiejansen.com. And Julene and I will discuss it right here so that you have the help you need. So we appreciate you being with us today. Thank you for listening, and we will be back again. Oh, I know what I was going to say. We're kind of relaxed here. So before I close out,
where are you going, Debbie?
There's one thing that I had 2 phone calls about after the debate. I'm going to let Julene give you a 1-sentence answer on this. She is great at it. It was talked about a lot. They were saying that we're destroying our democracy. And I looked at Ron and I said, now all my kids know, and we know, that we don't have a democracy, we have a republic. But not many people know the difference. So go, Julene, tell us that, and that's what we'll leave with today.
Well, isn't that funny? Most of Congress doesn't even know what form of government we have. We have a republic where we democratically all go, in the fall and vote. Democratically means everyone does it by the masses. So democratically, we all go, all the citizenry goes and votes each, fall every few years. And then people that we vote for act as representatives to then go take, our feelings, our views to Washington, D.C. or whatever organization that they're representing us. So we have a republic, one, it says so in the Pledge of Allegiance. How do we go wrong there? Why are politicians calling this a democracy? I mean, if they're unclear about the truth of what form of government we have, we might be in trouble. I mean,
which we are.
A democracy, Deb, would mean that every single one of us vote on every single law in America. And I quite frankly don't have the skill set or the time to be smart enough to, vote. But we elect these people, we send them to Washington, D.C., and that's their full-time job. They have staff members to know what is the best laws. And then, hopefully they're representing our views. If not, we vote them democratically. We go to the polls and vote them out, but we for sure have a republic. So, simple things like that, when you're talking to your children and, someone says a democracy, you can explain to them right on the spot, honey, you do know we don't have a democracy. We have a republic. And
Because
so
I don't want to go to Washington and vote on whether or not we spend $4 million to buy screwdrivers for everybody across the country. I don't want to vote on that.
hey,
Okay.
I got dinner I got to make tonight. I don't have time to do, be researching screwdrivers,
Yeah, really.
So
Oh my goodness.
I really do think though that, the truth, God tells us the truth will set you free. And when
Yes.
you know the source of truth, and you got to be in relationship, good things happen. So if you've got a good relationship with your kids, if you're in good relationship with God, you're going to know the truth.
Yes. Yes.
So I think one of the best ways that we can teach our kids truth is when we know the truth, right? When we know the real deal, the real story behind, historical figures. I think of Christopher Columbus. So Columbus Day is coming up soon. It's October 12th, I think. Today's the 3rd. And just this morning, I came across this little book called "Is God's Hand in America?" So I'm like, oh, we're going to read this. We're going to take a page or two a day with my 17-year-old while she's eating, at the kitchen table, her breakfast. We do the study. We, do our little devotional, and I'm like, I'm just going to read her a page or two, and it comes to Christopher Columbus, which is in a week from now, Columbus, and his reputation has been so maligned by modern day historians. And so we read about, if you really want to know the character of someone, go to the primary sources or someone that had a firsthand account or was there, And so did you know Christopher Columbus, Debbie, actually had journals, and he said that it was God that led him to, get in the Mayflower and Mayflower. Hello, that's the Pilgrims. What were the 3 boats? The Nina, Pinto, and Santa Maria. Anyways,
Yeah.
he took the boats, across the ocean, and he said it was the Holy Spirit that led him. And then even a historian at the time that Christopher Columbus lived said that what he accomplished was the most outstanding feat ever possible, and it was by the divine hand of God, Bartholomew de las Casas. Anyways, so I'm reading these quotes to her, and we're talking about Christopher Columbus because in Washington D.C. we can't even call it Columbus Day anymore. We call it Natives Day or something because we've had all the statues of Christopher Columbus taken down in this area because they're teaching our kids to think that he was just a genocidal maniac, that was all about wealth and gold. And so we talked about, we read the quote of him, God guiding him here, and what historians that lived during that time, knew that he was a godly man, and he really wanted to convert the natives to Christianity, like other sheep I have, which are not of this fold kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so, and you know how I learned that story? I learned it through cottage meetings, these little study groups of women coming together in homes through Moms for America that both you and I are involved in. So as I learn the true stories, then I come home and I teach my children around the dinner table or in devotional. And so it's so important as women, Debbie, that we can't teach something to our children that we don't know ourselves, right? And so
Right.
being able to be hopeful means that we're going to be constantly learning, right? We're going to be learning the
Yes.
stories and miracles of America. Because, if God was in the establishment of America then, he's going to be in preserving and protecting us now. And so when you know the truth, it fills you with hope and confidence and the ability to share that hope and confidence with other people.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. I agree with you 100%. And then you can take what you're doing and move it into today's world as well.
Yeah.
Because this is a big country, and how did it get started? There's another book, Patriots and Petticoats.
Oh, yeah.
And I got that, or Petticoats and Patriots, whichever way it is. But I bought that book thinking I would just read it for myself. And I like to my granddaughter does not fool me. She goes in the bathroom and she reads my magazines or my books that are in there. And that book was in there, and she started reading it, and she brought it out to me. Gammy, did this really happen? Yeah, those are true stories about young girls her age and older, and the women during the Revolutionary War, what they did, how they lived. And she said they went through so much. Why? And I was able to bring it to her to make this country better. And then we got into some books called Time Benders, which I love. It's by Jim Denny. And those books are teaching her and my other granddaughter, Gracie, how to recognize evil, because it's written on a kid level, but it's fantasy. It's about a little Volkswagen that goes back in time with the kids inside, and they've learned to recognize evil. So when you put all of this together, the cottage meetings of learning our history and our country, why it was, what was Columbus really like? What were some of the other founding fathers really like? What did they believe? And then you bring it into today, you make your kids stronger.
Right.
And one thing, like what you were talking about, the Columbus statues being knocked down, my granddaughters asked me about that. And I said, well, that's the same as you being 10 years old and you break my most precious treasure from my parents, and I can't ever replace it. Now, what do I do about that? Do I hate you for the rest of your life? Or do you say you're sorry? And do you change your life? And do we move on and think about the good things you've done? And they said, well, you would forgive us and move on. I said, yeah, our founding fathers were flawed.
Mm-hmm.
They were not perfect. They did stuff that was not good. But guess what? All the people that want to tear those statues down, they're not perfect either.
I love that.
And what we need to do is concentrate on what our forefathers did that was right, and live by that, and thank them that we're in the best country in the world.
Right.
And let's try to make it better. So you can go from what you're talking about, Julene, and I love the cottage meetings that you teach and the things that we do, but you can go from that to teaching your children how to see history and life in a truthful manner.
Right, right. Oh, so good, Debbie.
Thank you so much for being with us today. Please join us again. Subscribe to this podcast. Ask questions. We are here for you, darlings. And this is Debbie Jansen.
This is Julene Jackson, and we are
Stickin' to the truth.
Bye-bye.
Bye.